For Crema Media's Polity, I'm Sane Dlamini. Business expert and author Pavlo Phitidis discusses his book titled Sweat, Scale, Sell. If you can just briefly tell us what inspired you to write this book.
You know, there's never one seed of inspiration. It starts somewhere and then it builds. And you know, when you have an idea in your mind and you start looking at the world informed by that idea, in many ways that idea becomes positively motivated. So the very early stages of what led to the thinking behind the book and the content in the book is that I was born to 3 successful failed business owners. And what I mean by that is they were immigrants into the country. They, because of various reasons, could not get formal jobs in the economy. They couldn't get jobs in government. They couldn't get jobs in corporate. So they all had to be entrepreneurs in order to look after their families and feed their families. And the 3 of them committed to 3 different businesses in 3 sectors. And somehow they were the classical people who stuck to one thing for a long time. They educated themselves. They worked hard. I remember as a young kid, and I write about it in the book, the Sundays working with my father, helping him with administration from the age of 4, 5, 6 years of age. So they were people who were deeply committed to the businesses that they built. They joined trade associations to become part of a broader community and improve conditions for the businesses that they were running. I remember as a kid, my dad used to bring people home for dinner and lunch that were foreign suppliers, local customers, staff members. They built tremendous community around these businesses, but I specifically remember them working hard. And yet, having provided for us as kids, my one uncle worked until he was 89 because he had to. My other uncle worked until he was 85 because he had to. And my father, had it not been for an intervention, which I write about in the book under the family business section, would have had to have continued working, but he managed to stop at 77, I think it was. And it was because they had no choice. They had to continue working. They had built businesses that provided an income for themselves and their families, but they had not provided and built businesses that were sellable. And that got me worried. And it got me worried because I thought, gosh, we don't have the genes. We don't have the genes or the DNA that would make our family successful entrepreneurs and business owners. And at one point in my life, I went to the States and I was there for just under a year. And I got access to a lot of data around the performance of businesses in the United States of America. Now, you need to understand that that country is so well geared to entrepreneurs. The policies are favorable. There's very little red tape. There's very little friction in starting a business there. It's welcomed, it's lauded, it's celebrated. There's talent everywhere. There's money anywhere if you know how to look for it. And there are big opportunities. And in the United States of America, 94.6% of businesses started fail to sell. And it got me thinking, maybe it's got nothing to do with DNA. Maybe the system of how you build a business is broken. And that was the original seed, the inspiration that said, there's a problem because smart people that I certainly know and have worked with, hardworking people that I certainly know and have worked with, people who really apply themselves, if they can't crack that 94.6% of businesses that are started that fail to sell, maybe it's the process of building a business as opposed to the individuals where the issue is. And that was the seed behind the book.
And that's why you bring on this issue of a business has to be an asset of value. Can you clarify why that is important and key?
Completely. You know, most of us when we start with an idea behind a product or a service. We, for example, look at a customer and say, that customer needs something. Let me source the something. And in doing so, that something becomes my business. Or I've got technical skills and I'm very good with, for example, pumps. And I speak about Tembelani in the book, who was expert on the physical product of a pump. And we start our businesses with that because it means we have something to trade. And that's how you start a business, by trading. The big difference though, is if you start a business with a product mindset or a service mindset, and then only after time do you start to say, well, who actually is my customer and what problem do I solve for them? It's hard to see the truth of the market opportunity because you're blinded by the features of your product or the features of your service. An asset of value as a concept turns the whole thing upside down. It says, first thing you've got to do is understand, who do you want to serve? Who is your customer going to be? And you need to be very clear and particular about it. I often meet business owners who say, well, we service the corporate market. And I say, but who is this corporate market? Oh, blue chip companies. And I say, okay, but there's a blue chip in mining, there's a blue chip in technology, there's a blue chip in banking. Are all of them? And I'm saying no. Clear positioning, which is the first building block of an asset of value, says, I need to know who it is that I serve. More importantly, I need to know what problems they have that I can solve with my skills, my solution, my service. More importantly, I need to understand the cost to them of not having the problem solved. On that basis, in providing them with the service or the product, I need to make sure that my cost is less than the cost of not having the problem solved. And then finally, there's always a human being behind that buying process. What experience do they need in order to have that problem solved in a manner that makes them excited? When you've got that in place, we then talk extensively in an asset of value around building a system of delivery. And business systems need to produce that experience on a consistent basis. And then, Sane, that's when you can find the right people to do the right things at the right time. And when you have those three things in place, it releases you, the business owner, to focus on the one thing that you should be doing that no one else can do. And that's accelerating the growth of the business.
You've seen a lot of businesses fail, as you've just said. But tell us, why do you think most people in business don't want change? And in the end, you've just said that they become like slaves of their business. They don't even enjoy what they're doing.
Completely. Look, there are a whole lot of reasons for it. But some of them include, for example, if you build the business wrong from the starting points, and you get to a point where you're 15, 20, 30 years in your business, and the foundation of the business has been built wrong. And I talk to this point in the book where I say, in truth, you have not created a business. You've simply created a job for yourself. You are stuck in the engine room of the business, as opposed to being on the bridge of the business. And the analogy of the ship is very useful, because the engine room, which is below decks, and there's no natural light, you're simply tinkering away with the engines, you're making sure that the engines work, and it's crucial to do so because they turn the propeller, which gives you forward momentum. However, when you're up on the bridge and not in the engine room, you have the power to determine the direction of the forward momentum. And you have dials and dashboards that give you information around how the engines are performing. And most business owners, and it's got nothing again to do with size of the business, industry, intelligence of the business owner, commitment of the team. Most businesses that I come across have got business owners, partners or individual business owners who are stuck in the engine room. And when you're down there, you can't see the wood for the trees. To get a different perspective on the changing dynamics of the marketplace is very, very hard. And what do you do to hold on to as a point of safety? My product and its features. And the market doesn't buy that anymore. We live in an experience economy. So the first reason is I'm simply too busy to actually pay attention to the changes in the marketplace, acknowledge the changes in the marketplace, and build my business differently. The next thing is, when I see business partners working together, you and I start a business today. I promise you, within 3 years, we are suffering from groupthink. We think the same, and we both have the same perspective on the world with regard to our business. It becomes very, very hard to see things that aren't within your domain. The exciting opportunity that I've been afforded because of the work we do is we worked with over 2,000 SMEs, cross-sector, cross-industry. So constantly, you have to have a helicopter view to understand the dynamics of, let's say, for example, the engineering sector compared to the hospitality sector. And that cross-sector view constantly gives you a perspective on engineering that you might have learned in hospitality or food services or financial services. And I think that you often need, in order to get out of the engine room, someone, a service, an organization, people who've simply got a different perspective, because that helps you lift and turn around and say, is what I'm doing giving me a good investment in my time, or am I simply spending my time, which I speak about extensively, churning the engine simply to keep going?
Do you think the economy in our country is conducive in helping business to maybe uplift and turn around the rate of unemployment?
No, I don't think it's doing nearly enough. It's not working nearly enough. It's not working nearly hard enough, honestly. You know, it's fascinating. So if, for example, here's a big philosophical rift in thinking. And in the book, I speak extensively about technology and about digitization and mechanization and automation. And what informed that for me were insights that I've gotten over the years that I've worked in the United States and the UK. Because in the UK, for example, you know what the biggest concern of government is? You know how they measure business performance there? They take a small business and they look at the revenue per employee. And they're looking to get the ratio right as a signifier of productivity. And the reason they're so scared about not getting that right, Sine, is because they recognize that if they don't get this right, it effectively means they will be left out of the global value chain of the economic pie right around the world. And they're saying to their entrepreneurs and their SME owners, you need to improve your productivity. We are going to introduce policies to support digitization, mechanization, automation. In other words, the true adoption that we speak about as the fourth industrial revolution. We're going to create incentives for you to adopt that technology so that you can remain relevant, and in the process of remaining relevant, keep the United Kingdom relevant in the global economy. And I think we have far too many different conflicting agendas. Arguments are then used to say, but if you digitize, if you automate, what happens to jobs, especially in a country where we are approaching 30% unemployment? At Auric, we have digitized extensively. In our offices that we recently moved into, we created a fourth industrial revolution office space that allows us to, from South Africa, offer services globally on a rand cost base. We have digitized, I think it's now upwards of 389 administrative processes. And Sine, you know what happened? We grew. And this year alone, we've employed 18 new people. Everyone who used to perform those administrative tasks that are now digitized, in other words, they're no longer performing them, we're able to shift up, move up through design and through support from us as the business leaders in the organization to capacitate them with more meaningful work, more interesting work, and more value-creating work. If we don't adopt that approach right across South Africa, I fear for where our SME economy is going. The second thing is this. We live and work in, at a corporate level, a very uncompetitive environment. And I'll give you a really good example. In South Africa, we have what now? Around 10 banks. 4 big established banks, a new entrant being Capitec, and then a whole series of smaller banks, all eating at the edges, at the fringes, seeking growth and seeking access to market. In the United Kingdom, there are 300 banking licenses. And what that's done is it's created such intense competition in the financial services space that it's spawned so many technology companies. It made the United Kingdom the center of the European community's fintech industry. Because in that competition, what happens is this. You compete. I write in the book around innovation extensively and say the only time you innovate is for fear that if you don't, you will be killed. You will not survive. Your business will die. So you innovate. And when you innovate, it means you make your business more relevant to where the market is today. And in doing so, you then get traction. And traction means you get growth. And growth needs to be funded. So funders come into the pot. And what that does is it attracts talent. Because talent turns around and says, that particular economic sector is vibrant, it's alive, it's full of opportunity. So talent comes into that space. And what does that do? It spurs on innovation, which spurs on investment, and it becomes a very positive, widening circle of opportunity. That's how fresh jobs are generated. We have a country here with a significant economy in terms of the problems we face. And yet we are not creating the incentives by way of economic policy. We're allowing the concentrated economy to remain in play, and we're not encouraging, through effective policy, effective economic distribution and inclusion, opportunities for people to invest with certainty, to tie into innovation, and to broaden the sectors where they want to make their careers. There is so much to be done.
In the book, you also share a very interesting, and I laughed when I read about it, where you are talking about when you were setting up the business with Karen and your first caller. Can you tell us about that first call?
So now I came back to South Africa and decided, right, so there's a problem with how businesses are built. That's what we're going to solve. And we're going to solve it in South Africa. And based on my experiences in the United States, I thought that the service we were building was that of a business incubator, because that's what I had seen there. That's what I had worked with over there. So we started our business. We called it Auric Business Incubator. And in those days, I could hack Google, and I made sure that we ranked right at the top of the search engine. And the very first call we had, which was on the day that we took down the under construction messaging around our URL, was from a client, what I thought was a client, who had phoned Auric, and my co-founder, Karin Engelbrecht, answered the phone and said, Auric Business Incubator, how may I help you? We were so excited that this was going to be our first client. And I heard the gentleman speaking on the other side of the phone, and she said, no problem, sir. I'll transfer you to the right division. And she put the phone on hold. I was the right division, and she was simply sitting across the table like you and I are here. And I said to her, how long should the phone ring to make us sound like a corporate so that we're well established? And I picked up the phone and I said, Auric Business Incubator, how can I help you? And the man on the other side of the phone said, yeah. Do you work in Mpumalanga? Of course we didn't. Yes, sir. Of course we do, I said, because we needed the cash flow. It's a startup business. He wanted chicken egg incubators. And when he saw Auric Business Incubator, he thought we supplied the incubators that would help the eggs hatch. So he could supply 7,000 chicks a week to all the chicken farmers in the Mpumalanga area. I thought it was a joke for the first minute. I took it seriously in the second minute. And the long and the short of it is, we supplied the incubators, and that gave us 11 months of funding to become the business that we wanted to be, not the business that everyone thought we were.
And have you had feedback from people who've read the book?
I've had quite a bit of feedback.
Yeah, and what are they saying?
Well, people are finding the read very easy. It's been written in a story style. I've deliberately steered clear of all business jargon to the extent that I can. I wanted to make it about real people because I believe that everyone who has a business that's running has, if they're given the insight, the direction, a structure, an architecture, the ability to turn their effort into real value by building it into an asset of value. And most people have turned on and said, I bought the book, I can't wait to get going in order to scale with the view to one day sell, but it's the sweat part that I'm in right now. So there's been lots of humor around it.
Yeah. And what do you say to someone who is aspiring to start a business? What words of advice would you give them?
Oh, besides don't. It is hard. It is hard. So firstly, everything that you put down on Excel won't happen. Everything you write in your business plan won't happen. Go into a business where you have an affinity and a love for the sector and the industry you're in, because you will have to go through 50 no's before you get your first yes. The second thing is, don't go in with big ideas, go in with very small ideas. In other words, start small. You might have a big dream and a big vision, but start very, very small. And know this, if you don't understand why people buy from you or why people don't, you will never understand what business you need to be in. So go in with the question why every time somebody supports you or rejects you. It's never, never personal. People out there, businesses out there, potential clients out there, potential customers only ever spend money to get one thing done, and that's to solve a problem. When someone doesn't buy from you, it's not because of how you look, your gender, your age, your dress sense. It's got to do because you have not understood the person you're selling to, you have not understood what problem they're experiencing, and you've not understood how, in selling them whatever you're selling them, that could solve the problem for them. It is the single hardest thing to get right. And it takes between 3 to 7 years, in my experience, to truly, truly understand it. It is the single biggest chapter in that book. And it says, if you don't position and understand your purpose, everything you do after that will be built on the wrong foundation. You have to get that right.
And lastly, what else will the readers get if they buy your book?
Look, I think you will get a very, very practical approach to building a business. There's something in it for everyone running a business. We talk a lot about people problems, because people are a big issue in every business. Most business owners I speak to say, if you want something done properly, do it yourself. No, not true. The person responsible for that is you, the business owner. If you build the business correctly, you'll be able to employ the right people. I can promise you there's lots of talent in the South African market, and it's out there and it's available and it's looking for a good home. You will learn how to raise funding. More importantly, you will learn how to negotiate the sale of your business and understand how the valuation process works. You will understand technology, its value, how that technology can be in service of you, or an enormously painful big mistake that you might embark on. And it will help you understand how to position the business uniquely in a very, very competitive market and in a zero growth economy. And right now, who wouldn't want to understand that process? Because to get growth in a zero growth economy is absolutely possible, but it requires you to take a very different approach to looking at the economy.
Thank you. That was Pavlo Phitidis speaking to Crema Media's Polity about his book titled Sweat, Scale, Sell.